Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the time has come. The time is now. The BoomBastiCAST is in your ear and eyebrow. We're about to do it. We got a new glorious guest with us, the great Corin Nemec. Somebody might know him as Parker Lewis from Parker Lewis Can't Lose. You know, The Stand, Stargate, Supernatural. You know what I mean? Webster, dude, doing it big. 13 eps on that, I think.
Yeah.
Just, super cool guy, legendary. Parker Lewis, I'll return to Parker Lewis just to say, legendary, dude. Like, in my youth, there was nobody, and even in my adult age, there ain't nobody cooler than Parker Lewis. And you can't lose.
Not me. Not even me.
Maybe Alex, but a close. You guys are neck and neck, you know what I mean?
Neck and neck. Okay, at least we're neck and neck.
You know what I mean? Drop Zone with Wesley Pipes, you know what I mean? He's done a lot of films with the good friends with David Faustino. They did a bunch of films. Legendary dude, a legendary dude, perfect guest for the Boombastic Much love to him. And what do you think when I told you we were having Corin on the show? What'd you think? What popped in your head?
Honestly, Stargate for me. I mean, that was the first time that I really connected to him.
Yeah.
Really loved him on the show. Um, and of course, I mean, when I found out he was on the show, like every person we have, I go and I do a deep dive and seeing all the stuff he's done. I mean, there's a lot of the stuff that I've watched that I didn't realize it was him,
Uh-huh.
and when to rewatch it. And what I love is, he's constantly working. He does such. I mean, his the characters he plays are always quite different. I mean, there's always something different about every character he plays. He always gives the character depth. He gives them, even the chills. I mean, when he's playing a serial killer.
Yeah.
And I've seen him in comedies. I've seen him in sci-fi. I've seen him in horror. Yeah, he does the whole gambit.
Yeah.
Um, and I always enjoy people that are able to jump from different genres, try different things, and he's a renaissance man when it comes to the craft, I believe.
I agree. You know. So why listen to these two Joe Schmoes talk about a great legendary dude? Let's have the legendary dude come into the show, and I think it's time. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, for the first time, welcoming to the Boombastic Cast, the great, the powerful Corin Nemec. Welcome. Corin, welcome to the Boombastic Cast.
It's my pleasure to be here. I'm a boombastic individual myself from time to time. So to be with the two originators of the boombasticity,
There it is.
it's incredible for me.
There it is. Well, we appreciate that. We've been wanting to get you on for a long time coming. You know what I mean? And it's a glorious occasion to have you here. Big fans. You know what I mean? So
Right on. Thank you.
the pleasure is all ours for sure. You know what I mean? So we usually like to start off at the best place for things like this, which is the beginning. The beginning of time. Um, Now, I know your mother was a graphic artist, I believe, and your father he worked in the film industry to some regard. Is that kind
Yeah,
of
he still
how
does. Yeah, but yeah.
still
My
does?
my my mom was a graphic designer, and she kind of got her beak wet, and I mean, she started working originally for Home Depot in Atlanta, but then, but her ultimate desire was to work in the music business, and so she eventually, shortly after we moved to Atlanta from Arkansas, she started working with a big promotional company called Standing Room Only, SRO, which brought in, the Iron Maiden, Kiss, Prince, Jay Giles band, Hall and Oates, Joan Jett,
Yeah,
Asia, those are all like I got to go to those concerts and go backstage and do all the cool things and
That's
stuff.
awesome.
But so it was a really big promotional company, and so she started doing their the advertising and the show posters and stuff for them, and then she ended up being hired by the Nederlander company, which owns all the Fox theaters, a bunch of and she started doing the local posters for Atlanta, Georgia, for any of the plays or musicals that were coming through at the Fox Theater there. And then she put in for a transfer to the Pantages Theater in Hollywood, and she got the transfer. So that's what landed me in Los Angeles. Fortunately, otherwise I never would have become an actor. Not necessarily. I wouldn't become an actor. I may have, but the chances would have been a lot slimmer.
Yeah.
But so she ended up working for the Pantages Theater out there. But in the meantime, my dad, he's still a production designer. He still works professionally in the industry. But he started out getting his beak wet in the film business, like doing set design for the Series V. He was the assistant art director on the movie Goonies.
Hell yeah. I've heard that
But
movie.
he worked on The Abyss. He was the production designer on Terminator 2 and Twister and Patriot Games and The Saint and The Shadow and a bunch of other films. And he did Ironclad in the early 2000s, which was a really cool, really well done medieval film. And now actually he's in the process of working with a team that's doing the artistic design for a new theme park that's going to be up in the Pacific Northwest. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's definitely cool. So were you able to kind of visit the sets the same way you were able to kind of benefit with the music stuff?
Yes, I mean that's kind of what led me in that direction. Oddly enough, it was the movie Goonies that I that really sparked my interest in becoming an actor. And that came out. I was still living in Atlanta, Georgia at the time, but when I saw that, I had been out to LA, staying with my dad from time to time, and we would go on whatever movie set that he was working on at the time, or TV show or whatever, and we'd see what was going on behind the scenes. And I think me and my sister might have even been extras in the movie Hell of the West years ago, which was a movie about bicycling. I don't that might not be the final name of it, but anyway. I knew going to shows with my mom, going to not the concerts so much, but like the plays and the musicals, knowing that the actors and the stages, and then going out to LA, visiting my dad and seeing how they do things behind the scenes. I understood that it was all this big make believe world. And me and my buddies in Georgia, we lived near these big swaths of woods and forests, and it's quite undulating there. There's a lot of like kind of ravines and little hillsides, and there was a rock quarry, and there was abandoned houses, and really old houses. There was an abandoned cemetery, like that kind of stuff back in the woods. It was all super cool. And we would like play, like I was into Dungeons and Dragons, and so we would be back there like having like live action Dungeons and Dragons experiences,
Yeah.
which was really cool. Like kind of, like we'd have our own characters, we'd have our powers, and we'd do all of that stuff. And then we'd actually go out into the real world, and we'd pretend that we were these characters we played in Dungeons and Dragons, and use sticks for swords and whatnot. And that level of make believe was really important to me, that whole play, that playing in life. And when I saw the movie Goonies, and my dad was the assistant art director on, when I saw it, I knew that those kids are my age, and this is what they do. They go through wardrobe. They get to put on the actual outfits that the character's wearing. They build the sets for them to play, to pretend on. So it's not like me out there with a stick in the woods,
Yeah.
pretending to be Zoran, the unstoppable or whatever, and I realized, man, that's the gig. And I was about 11 years old when I had this kind of revelation, 10, 11 years old. I was just like, man, I have to do that, and that was the same time that my mom got the transfer to the Pantages Theater in Hollywood. And to make a long story short, I ended up at Walter Reed Junior High School in Studio City, and I was taking graphic design as an extracurricular. And in my class was this actor named David Van Gorder. And David Van Gorder at that time in the 80s was really well known for playing the lead character in a Van Halen music video called Hot for Teacher, as the nerd Waldo who had the hots for his teacher. And I was like, what? That's you, man. I was like, it was my first starstruck moment of, but not really, but, kind of. But I had informed him, that like, yeah, man, that's totally what I want to do. I want to get into acting myself. And like, you got any, tips or whatever? And he was like, well, I'm in an acting class. You should get into my acting class. And it turned out, oddly enough, that he was, because you throw a stone, you're going to hit an acting class out in LA, and not all of them are worth their salt. It's certainly always good to practice one's craft, but it happened to be this guy Kevin McDermott with a group called Center Stage LA that was a youth oriented acting group. And he was very well respected within the industry. When he would do showcases, a lot of agents and managers, I mean, he would have a packed house, and they were all in there looking for new upcoming talent. And so I auditioned for the class. I made the class, and I studied there for 6 or 8 months or so. And then we had our first showcase, and I immediately signed with an agency called Abrams, Rubloff and Lawrence. And my very first audition when I was 12 years old was for a Suzuki motorcycle commercial that aired it was their big commercial for the 1986 Super Bowl. So I got the commercial. I got the job. A guy named Paul Ventura was the casting person for it. He cast me in a number of other commercials after that. Great guy. But, so going in, first audition I ever went on professionally, got the job. I mean, I was like, this is the best business ever. And funny enough, my uncle was on vacation somewhere. I feel like he was down in the Caribbean or something, but he was at some like beach bar watching the 1986 Super Bowl, and suddenly my commercial pops up, and he starts losing his mind, like screaming to everybody there at the bar, that's my nephew, and he's like, people are like, who is this wacko? But
cut him off.
But and then and then I did a couple cool guest spots after that. I did like a episode of Sidekicks with Gil Gerard, Ernie Reyes Jr., who became a very good friend of mine. Ernie Reyes did, and but shortly thereafter, I was cast as Noble Tucker in Francis Ford Coppola's movie Tucker, playing Jeff Bridges' son. And once I got that part, the dynamics of my career changed, because just getting off of a Francis Ford Coppola film, coming back to LA, I had a lot more beef to my career that allowed me to audition for bigger and better parts, and to be kind of on people's radar as an up and comer. And oddly enough, my agency at the time, I didn't even audition for, but they had a role for Nikki Papadopoulos, the live-in cousin of Webster. On the series there. It was the final season. I think it was season 12. And I got the offer, and I really didn't want to do it. I was like, no. And then they were like, yeah, but this is what they're going to pay you every episode. I was like, so once a week I'll get that much? I was like, what? I'm 13 years old. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it was I was like one of the first kids on a skateboard who had his own ATM card. And it was pretty rad, man. It was pretty cool. So, and Emmanuel Lewis was great to work with. Unfortunately, Mam and George were not pleasant to work with at all. They had gone through a divorce in the last couple of years of the show, and they were really married in real life, and they did not make working there pleasant, which was a bummer, because Emmanuel Lewis and the other young actors on the show were great. We had a great time together, but So that was, and then after that, it just went on and on and on. I just kept working. And still to this very day, the only time that I've ever been uh, almost a year without an acting job was after I got injured in a boat wreck filming in Belize, and it shattered my femur into 7 pieces, and had to have 5 surgeries and all this other stuff. And even then, I managed to do to do one acting job during that time period. But so that the only thing that's ever stopped me from from working has been a near death injury.
Yeah, that's and you came back from it. That's that's good stuff. What actually happened? Was it like a stunt gone wrong, or was it like a
No, it was just them trusting that the Belizean Coast Guard had boats that really functioned the way that they were supposed to, which was not true at all. They had no radar, no sonar, no searchlights, and we were traveling at a high rate of speed in the pitch blackness of the early morning, and we crashed into a known shipwreck that people go, it's a diving spot. Everybody knows where this thing is, except the Belizean Coast Guard. So it was just, thank God nobody ended up thrown out of the boat. That's the real miracle. I don't understand how not one person that was on that boat ended up in the water. It's truly a miracle. I was the most injured, unfortunately. The doctor explained it like this: like if you took a breadstick and you snapped it in half, that's a break. He goes, well, yours was, and he like squished it like this. He goes, that's what happened to your femur. I'm like, how? Like, I don't even really. I remember us hitting whatever we hit. I don't. Like we just were cruising, and I'm kind of like laying up there on the front deck area, and next thing you know, the boat just stops, and I'm flying through the air, and I'm like, what? And then I wake up. I come to, and I got all these people on top of me. And when I tried to stand up, I was like, oh, this leg doesn't work.
yeah. Well, I've always heard Belize to be kind of like lawless type. Like, really, the only thing I know about it is John McAfee and all the
Yeah, of course, man. I've watched the documentaries.
yeah, like his whole deal with his neighbor and just like the lawlessness of that
We
over.
won't talk about the scat videos.
Oh, Jesus.
uh yeah, man, I mean, it's from my understanding, without I had, fortunately, they have, it used to be British Honduras, and they have like 250,000, 500,000 British expats that live down there,
Yeah.
and they have some private hospitals there that primarily service the expats, and the higher employed Belizean locals. And I just got blessed to end up with this doctor who did all of his orthopedic surgery training in Canada and the Americas. And even though he was a local down there, and he did not have the tools to do this surgery, like they didn't exist in Belize. The level of destruction to my leg was, normally they would just hack the leg off. But he went in there and he did his best. He saved my life. I lost eight pints of blood out of 12,
Wow.
and he saved my life. He patched me up enough to get me back to the U.S. And granted, I did get held hostage at the hospital for 2 weeks until the insurance company brought them 36 grand in cash. But I was alive
Yeah, yeah.
during the hostage negotiations, and then they finally got me back to the U.S. And I ended up having to have 4 more surgeries after that in order to get everything working right, because there was the potential that I would lose some length in my leg. There was all this other stuff, and then I had to do a year and a half of not only inpatient physical therapy but outpatient physical therapy. It was the gnarliest time of my life, man. But oddly enough, I don't know why, but I had a really good attitude through it.
You're young. You were young. That's probably what helped the added.
Well, I was in my later 30s. I
Oh,
don't know if
okay.
that's
All right then.
young or not, but
Yeah, all right, fair enough. Fair enough. Let's jump back to Tucker for a second, if we will. Francis Ford Coppola, heavyweight filmmaker, one of probably the best of our time. Do you have any memory of like working with him or how like what his procedure on set is? Is he very hands-on with the actors? Is he kind of I'll
You
stand
know,
back and let them do their thing?
a bit of both.
Okay.
He's like, for instance, on Tucker, I've never had the experience really in my life like this, but we before we shot, went into our first day of principal photography on that production. He took us into a soundstage up there at Lucasfilm, and they did mock-ups of the different sets. And they even had, pardon me, and they even had like cardboard cutouts of different props and things. I mean, they had like a cardboard engine. They had a cardboard car. They had all this stuff that I'm like, dude, how many hundreds of thousands, if not, like, did you just spend just on this cool stuff?
Right.
But anyway, so in these mock-ups of the sets, I mean, these are just like basic four-wall kind of things with like, normal tables, nothing overly done. But we went through with Vittorio Storaro, the cinematographer, and Coppola, and we literally rehearsed we shot the entire movie on video
Mm.
before we shot the movie, so it was a great way to really get off the page, get comfortable with the material, get comfortable with the other actors, get that camaraderie going, because we're a family, and Tucker was a very, very passionate family man. And working with Christian Slater and Nina Shamasko, obviously not Anderson Cooper, Anders Johnson, who played the baby in it. He's like, wasn't a whole lot, in common there, but by the time we got into our first day of production, the relationships between me and Nina and Christian were very real. I mean, we really felt like a family. We had a great time together. It was a long shoot. It was like 3.5, 4 months. Which is great. You really have, I mean, our page count on that was probably like 2, maybe 3 pages a day, and I'm on these other shows that I've done, especially the smaller budget ones and the ones that I've produced, like for Lifetime or for Sci-Fi Channel stuff, we have like 11-page days. You know what I mean? It's like, what? How are we going to do this? So the luxury of the shooting schedule was fantastic. We would sometimes only do, like, we had some scenes when they were in the I don't know if it was supposed to be congressional hearings, or if it was at a if the hearings were in a court of law. I have to go back and watch the movie, but we had these scenes, and realistically in the script itself, the script was like 100 and I want to say 42 or 52 pages long, which is already like 25 or so pages longer than what you need for a 2-hour movie. So there was a lot of stuff that was shot that never made it into the film, but the level of care and time and attention was unbelievable. I mean, just unbelievable. What an experience. What an opportunity for a young actor like myself to have had at that time, and to work with the greats. I mean, that were there, the other actors, obviously not just Jeff Bridges, but the entire cast. I mean, what an incredible experience to have. And that was that was one of the greatest blessings, man. I've had an opportunity, oddly enough, to work with some of the coolest actors over the years, even on smaller films. I did a really cool movie of the week for Sci-Fi Channel when it first launched, called The Life Force Experiment,
Oh,
starring next to
Sutherland.
Donald Sutherland. And I'm like, dude, I'm working with one of the legends, and that's like, it's not. And then I did a sci-fi movie in the late '80s called Solar Crisis, and I was working with Jack Palance, Peter Boyle,
Yeah.
Charlton Heston. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and Tim Matheson, a very young Tim Matheson, played my dad in that, and I just got to say, it's like, and that was just the start of it, and all the other actors that I've had the opportunity to work with over the years. I mean, on Operation Dumbo Drop, Ray Liotta, Dennis Leary, Danny Glover.
Yeah.
I mean, get out of town, and let me tell you, Dennis Leary, one of the funniest guys I've ever had the pleasure of spending that much time with. We were in Thailand for damn near 6 months together. And I won't get too into it because we'll get totally into the weeds. I can do a 2 hour interview just on the making of Operation Dumbo Drop alone.
Yeah,
But suffice to say, he's from Boston, right?
he is. Yeah,
But he's a city guy like him, suddenly thrown into uh, a situation like Thailand, where as we call it in the West, the third world. I hate using that term, but
right.
that every day for him was a stand-up comedy show, every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a super funny guy. Every film he's into, he always brings that comedic element to it. You know what I mean? Which is
Oh, he was far funnier off screen. I can tell you that much. It was. I would love to tell all the stories, but we don't have time.
that was around the time that the asshole song, which was legendary. I remember when he did that. That I'm an asshole.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, classic, classic.
yeah, it's great.
So, working with Sutherland, he played like a mad scientist in that movie. Was he? How was he to work with?
Again, I very rarely, only on a couple of occasions, have I worked with actors who I thought were just uh, not pleasant.
Okay.
Not pleasant to be around, not kind to the crew, not giving to the other actors, and Donald Sutherland. Uh, what a guy, man! What a truly authentic, classically trained, grounded actor. I just his presence on set was so relaxing. There was nothing pompous, nothing like better than thou. Not like, hey, I'm here. Everybody step back. Which I oddly enough, I have experienced that with a few actors over the years, but that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
But he was fantastic to work with. What a guy.
He's like the persona. It's like the persona. He's got that persona too, where it's just like it's Donald Sutherland, and been a part of so many crazy things that were great.
Totally.
You know? The so Parker Lewis, big deal for me. You know what I mean? I love it. I know Alex likes it too, but I was, dude, it hit me right at the perfect age, and I was in it with him. You know what I mean? It was doing. How do you get into Parker Lewis? How'd that all kind of come about?
Yeah, man. Oddly enough, I had done a TV special some years before that called "What's Alan Watching" for
Yeah,
CBS. And again, what a cast! It was Eddie Murphy Productions with
Carlin was
uh,
Ge-
uh,
was
with
George
Bob.
Carlin in that too? I think.
Yeah, yeah, he
Yeah.
had a part of the Smothers Brothers were in it. But I mean, the main people I was acting around was Fran Drescher, Peter Michael Getz, Barbara Barry, David Packard, and young Pauly Shore.
Hey.
And the rest of all of those actors that you name were had like cameo roles and stuff like that. Um, and I played the lead character in that. What's Alan Watching? I was Alan, and I had such a crazy, chaotic family life that all I wanted to do was escape into television. And then the television shows became the skits. Bob Tischler, who was one of the original writer creators of Saturday Night Live, I believe, was the creator of this show. And oddly enough, at that time, Clyde Phillips was under contract with CBS. He was doing Houston Nights for them, and they had contracted him to come up with a teen sitcom that they wanted to do. And he was a huge fan of What's Alan Watching. He was like, "This is the kind of half-hour comedy that I want to do. Single camera, really wild." Breaks all the rules. Like he was a huge fan of it because he was over at CBS at the time, and the show didn't get picked up. We only did the hour-long pilot episode, which was very unfortunate. But he wrote Parker Lewis Can't Lose for CBS originally, and with Robert Lloyd Lewis, who he brought on board for that. But oddly enough, oh, I'm sorry, with Lon Diamond. Robert came on board later with Lon Diamond, a writing partner of his. So that was before Ferris Bueller came out. So people always say, "Oh, Parker Lewis was a like a spoof off Ferris Bueller," and in actuality, it was written before.
Interesting.
Or probably around the same time, but Ferris Bueller came out in the theaters a year or two after this, and CBS didn't pick up the show he created, and so the rights reverted back to him. And then after Ferris Bueller came out, he found out that Fox was taking pitches, so he took the show over to Fox because they were lining up there, and he figured, this young company, they'll get it, and they got it all right. And so the show got picked up by Fox, and fortunately for me, I had been in What's Alan Watching a couple of years previous to that, and Clyde Phillips and Lon Diamond loved me from my performance in that. So they immediately came to me as the guy that should play Parker Lewis. And also I had been nominated for an Emmy for I Know My First Name is Steven, a mini series I did when I was a teenager, and I had been getting off of some other big, the big film that I told you about, Solar Crisis. It flopped, unfortunately, but it was a big film at the time, $48 million budget, and with a cast, like I had mentioned, it was a pretty big deal. But so I was just blessed, man. I was blessed to get the offer to play Parker Lewis. I was nervous at first that it was going to be like the experience I had on Webster, but they explained to me that the shooting style was going to be like 3 O'Clock High with Casey Shamasco. That this really wild. The camera's going to be kind of a character, and we're going to be breaking the fourth wall like you did on What's Alan Watching. And I had such a great time on What's Alan Watching, making that such a great time. Yeah. So it was that was a big deal, and the show, at least the first 2 seasons, the show was absolutely cutting edge. Unfortunately, Rupert Murdoch sold that portion of Fox. He kept Fox News and I think Fox Sports or whatever, but he sold that section of Fox off. And the new executives that came on board after season 2 decided that Parker Lewis should be a half-hour comedy a la 90210. And like a light-hearted comedic version of High School instead of what we were doing, which was a wild, bombastic, crazy version of High School. So 3rd season really tanked us. Our audience that we had built up over those first 2 years were like, "What is this? Mm-hmm. Wait, Parker has a girlfriend now who's all in every episode? What?" That alone was enough to make most everybody tune out. Although she was very pretty and she was a wonderful actress, they wanted to see the cattle call.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I waited for years for that to get a DVD release too, because I was just like, I'm like, when?
Yeah, Shout Factory finally did season 1 and 2, and then there was a German release that came out that they did all 3 seasons together, but you had to order the DVD from Germany. So you get the DVD and you're like, wait, it's all in German. You mean I have to choose English?
Yeah.
So you'd have to choose the original English version on your DVD setup in order to watch what it was like without the dubbing.
Jeez. Was Parker Lewis like a big change? Like if you're the lead of a television show and I feel like I loved it. So I'm assuming there was a lot more people loving it. Teenagers, even older 20, 30-year-old people were digging on it. Wow.
The age span. What was unfortunate? See, our ratings were based on the Nielsen boxes, and families with Nielsen boxes they were relatively conservative in their viewing and all of that. And by the time the early '90s came up, most families, because TVs became relatively cheap by then, most families had 2 TVs. They had a TV for the adults and a TV for the kids somewhere in the house. And college students also don't have Nielsen boxes.
Right.
And our experience when we were doing the publicity tours and all of that with the success of the show was like next level. Like, I mean, it was those first 2 seasons. I was like, yo, everybody's watching it, but the Nielsen boxes were watching something else. And so they were looking at the Nielsen ratings, and that's why they kind of changed the show, because 90210 was on like midweek or whatever. But Parker Lewis was on around the same time as like Sunday Night News and stuff like that. So of course the individuals who have Nielsen boxes on a Sunday night aren't necessarily going to be like watching Parker Lewis, although their kids might be watching it in the garage or the basement or whatever other room in the house has a TV. And then our college following was outrageous. We did some college publicity tours doing college radio and stuff like that. And it was nuts, man. I was like, wow, people are really watching this. But the new executives, when they came on board, the old executives, I think, understood that the Nielsen ratings were archaic and untrustworthy by the 90s. But the new executives came in and they just looked at the Nielsen ratings, and they were looking at 90210 and some other shows they had. And then they were looking at us at 6 p.m. on a Sunday night, and they're going, we want 90210 ratings, because we're spending 90210 money on this show. So we want 90210 ratings. And I don't think they realized just how successful the show really was. If they had just left it alone, we probably would have gotten at least 5 seasons out of it. But once that season 3 came out with all the changes to the characters and the changes to the storylines and the style of the show, it was the nail in the coffin, unfortunately.
I mean, you did get over to 90210 at one point, though. You know what I mean? You did a little.
Yeah, I played Derek. I think it was Derek Driscoll. I did steal all of Tiffany Amber Thiessen's money and got away with it. I find that to be a hilarious story. That I figured, I was like, okay, I'm on 4 episodes, but then I get away with her money, so they have to bring me back. I mean, there's no way they're just going to let my character, fly to the Bahamas or whatever with all of her money. And they did. So I was like, either I did a bad performance, or they got a new or they got a new writer on the show that forgot about that storyline.
People can relate Parker to like Zach Morris as well. I feel, you know what I mean, with the Tiffany.
Well, that came after Parker Lewis Can't Lose, and they really, they were very fortunate because they were a Saturday morning show originally, and it wasn't as competitive, for them in terms of maintaining their seasonal getting their shows picked up every year. It's a Saturday morning show. I think that they did lean on a lot of what we did in Parker Lewis, when they created that show. It was a smart move by them, and I don't know how many seasons they did, but they did a lot more than us. And I that's great for them. Unfortunately, what happened to Screech, boy, that guy really went over the deep end. But hey. But speaking of the funny story of Boston.
Oh yeah.
Because it has to do with Parker Lewis.
Okay.
It has to do with Parker Lewis. So I was there for a Stargate convention. It was probably like 2005 or 6, and they used to do these things called gate cons. And so the conventions are just totally about Stargate, and we're there with the convention center in downtown, just for Stargate, and I haven't really sought fame, unfortunately, for myself in the public eye. It's like I've never really played that, since I was a young kid. I never really played that red carpet picks and pans game, and kept up with a publicity agent who would keep me out there and the world knowing who you are and all that. I just wanted to be a working actor and to be left alone, basically, So I'm walking around Boston. I'm there as one of the headliners for this convention because my character on Stargate had just, come out. The season had just released and all of that, and it was a big deal. And I'm walking around Boston, just walking around the streets, going to the corner store, the bodega and whatnot, and and like nobody knows who the hell I am. You know what I mean? Like nobody's like, hey man, aren't you that? Hey, are you that guy? Nothing, man. So, which is fine with me. So I'm walking into, as I'm walking into this corner store, there's this homeless dude like, I mean, laid out on his cardboard box, like right on the corner. I mean, laid out, like he's laying on his side. He's got his arm up. He's chilling. I mean, he is like, this is my living room. I'm watching, this is my TV, And so I walk by, I look at him, and he looks at me and everything. And I go into the bodega, and I'll buy some whatever I'm buying, and I come out, and when I come out, he's sitting there staring at me with this crazy look on his face, and I matched eyes with him. He goes, "Hey man, you're fucking Parker Lewis, aren't you?" And I was like, "I am." And he goes, "Man, I love that show." I was like, in all of Boston, the one person I get recognized by doesn't even have a TV, lives on the street, and
That's big then.
I was
Everybody
like,
got the TV, yeah.
dude, it was great. It was great, man. So I gave him like $5 and kept it moving. but
Cool.
but yeah, that was hilarious. Of all the entire city of Boston, the one person I get recognized is this wonderful hobo.
Hey, this shows you how popular it was. I mean, heck, he didn't have a TV. I mean, I'm assuming he probably had a TV when it was on, so he could.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, hey, it's always great when you are out there and people recognize you for stuff that you've done, especially when you're not expecting it. I mean, it's good knowing that stuff you've done have touched people to a point that they remember and that they, reach out and be like, "Hey, man, I love that. That was a great performance. I love that show." I mean,
Well, and the fact that in my mid 30s, I still looked enough like Parker Lewis that he recognized me. I was like, that was the biggest compliment. I'm like, dude, I'm 35, man. This guy's like, you're Parker Lewis. I was like, woo. Went back to the hotel. I was like, huh, yeah, not too shabby.
Hell yeah. Nowadays they're like what do you I wouldn't say rebooting, but they're
Rebooting.
like refreshing or whatever, bringing back the original cast type like Fuller House and stuff like that. You know,
Yeah.
it's probably wishful thinking, but it would be cool to see Parker
They
Lewis.
pitched one. Lon Diamond and Clyde Phillips pitched a reboot of Parker Lewis to Sony Television about 6 years ago, and nothing against them or anything, but they came with like Parker Lewis's kids, and it's now the kids at the school, and they're dealing with the same kind of stuff that the other guys dealt with. So not only did you have the full cast of kids at school, but you had myself, Mikey, Jerry, Kubiak, all of us, and our families at home. So the wife, me and Annie were married, whatever, and so you have this. You've now doubled the cast. The size of the cast, and I just I was kind of bummed because when I first met with them about rebooting the show, I actually met with them because I came up with a concept for a reboot called Parker Lewis Can't Win. And it was about Parker Lewis as an adult, and nothing he's done since high school has worked out for him. And he's just down and out, like couch surfing on, from Mikey and Jerry and Kubiak couches. Kubiak's a famous wrestler. Mikey's a famous rock star. Jerry's like a really successful judge. Miss Musso's now like the mayor of Santo Domingo, and Lemmer's the sheriff, and my sister's the DA. Shelly's the DA, and they've thwarted any effort I've ever made to try and become successful after high school and college or whatnot. And, that's what I pitched to them. And they're like, "Oh, you want to do a reboot?" I was like, "Yeah." I just, like, "Okay, we'll try and do ours, not yours." And I was like, "Yeah."
Terrible. I mean,
But I thought Parker Lewis Can't Win would be hilarious.
I love the idea there. That's what I was saying. It's like I don't think anybody wants to see the kids. They want to see him like in the workforce, like as an adult doing it. You know what I mean?
Yes, and if it was the polar opposite, completely flip the script.
Yeah.
And I even imagine that like, he still wears the same shirts and does it, but they're all dirty now, like cigarette burns in them or something, and his hair's kind of floppy, not exactly as as goosed up, and like lives in a tent in the park, and like and like I figured like the first shot you'd see is like it's a close up of him, and he's like all cuddled up in his bed with the pillow and the blanket, and he's like got the perfect hair, and as the camera pulls back, he's on a park bench. And then like and Lemmer comes up dressed as the sheriff. He's like, "Hey, Park, you can't sleep here, right? I'm like, well, Mikey said I couldn't stay on his couch any longer. He goes, well, it's not my problem. And so Parker goes back and he like goes through the bushes and finds his tent there. And like, but when he goes in his little tent, when he comes into it, because it's a fantasy show, it's like palatial inside of it.
Oh yeah,
He's got like a big widescreen TV. He's got his closet. He's got a nice bed. He's got, so. Oh, so, yeah, I pitched them. I pitched the hell out of these guys, but they didn't go for it. Uh,
I think that'd be great because a lot of times you always watch these shows where you have like you got Saved by the Bell, Park Lewis Can't Lose, where you have these kids, who are like always outsmarting the teachers and doing these crazy cool things, and then you of course just assume that when they become adults, it'll go there, but a lot of the times those who are successful in high school, in college, aren't successful when they get out, and that would be an awesome switch. And actually, I think would be like a big learning experience for people like, yeah, you can be successful here. It doesn't mean it's going to translate to when you get out. Yeah.
Totally, dude. Yeah, that was the idea, but it's having the opportunity to have continued just working in general in Hollywood as an actor, and like I said, not having gone a year without working on a show, on a film, on something that either I wrote and produced and got off the ground, or something that somebody else is putting together. I just had another film. A couple of films come out recently, a kids movie called The Kid Detectives, with me and David Faustino playing these villains who are stealing pets around the neighborhood, and then a film called Joe Baby with Harvey Keitel and Ron Perlman and Deacon Lockman that just got released in the last couple of years. That just got released recently in the last week or so, but in the last year I've had Place of Bones come out, where I'm starring with Heather Graham and Tom Hopper, a fantastic film. It's like Hateful Eight meets Misery. It's a wonderful film set in the Wild West. I've had a bunch of films come out in the last number of years, probably 5 or more, and then I have a film called Myra coming out later this year, another film called Kill Trip coming out, another film, Buster Brooks, that'll be coming out in the next year, and then I'm working on this new series, Heavy Hitters. I got the script evidence right here, and that's like a wonderful look at the inside world of baseball, training camps, and the draft, and all the struggles and not scandals as much as it is just struggles and drama that goes on behind the scenes of the baseball, getting into Major League Baseball. So that's very exciting. I have they've already shot all of season 1. The show hasn't come out yet, but they've shot all of season 1. We're starting on season 2. I'm a recurring character in season 2, and will likely go on to the next following seasons. But they've already been picked up for 5 to shoot 5 seasons. Each season is only 8 episodes, like they're doing nowadays.
Yeah.
It's not like the good old days when we were doing 22 to 24 to 26, 28 episodes on a show. Man, that's the real heavy hitters. But this is great. It's a great opportunity. Candace Kane was a child actor herself. She was on the Disney, what was it, that show for kids with like Justin Timberlake and all that. What was it?
Mickey Mouse Club.
Yeah, Mickey Mouse. She was on Mickey Mouse Club when she was young, and now she's executive producing and the writer on this show. So it's a wonderful turn of events for her too. So I'm stoked, man. I just keep working and keep hustling, and that's that's all. It's the greatest blessing in the world to be in my industry and to be a working professional in it. I have a lot of friends that I grew up with who they've either had to go on to other things completely, which I do some other things on the side as well in between, but the fact that I've been blessed enough to just be able to continue doing what I love to do it's tough to ask for more.
Yeah.
Tough to ask for more.
Yeah, man. I know you, and I think the first time you wrote, I know that you did the story for a Stargate episode. And I think 2005 was when you first kind of stepped into the producing.
Yeah, I'd been writing since I was a teenager,
Yeah.
actually, and had different projects in development at different times. Just never got anything off the ground. It was great to have that sold, and then I've actually ghost written a number of movies that they removed my name from for legal reasons, which I was really bummed about. But so I have a number of films that I've written that don't even have my name on them. But more recently, I know I wrote a Western called Dead Man's Hand that starred Stephen Dorff, Cole Hauser, and Jack Kilmer.
Right.
And that was a great writing job with my buddy Brian Skiba, the director. And then have a film that I wrote, produced, and acted in called Deadly Justice that just came out about a year or so ago. That I'm very proud of for the budget we did it for. I'm very proud of that. And yeah, man, I got some other projects right now in different stages of development. The director that this movie Myra is coming out, I did another movie with him that came out about a year and change ago called uh, Day Labor. It was a really cool thriller. Um, Robert Fraser, and great director, great guy, and so I did another film with him that's coming out later on, and then I have a movie that I wrote that's with him now that he loves, and we're packaging it, and it will hopefully be a part of his 3-picture deal that he's got going on. So I'm going to keep pushing on the stuff I've written. I also have some projects at some other production companies currently as well that are being looked at. So we'll see. We'll see. One's a series, and if that series goes, it'll be a serious game changer for me. But me and David Faustino had a production company together for a number of years, and we did a couple of films together, 3 or 4 films that we produced. We were producers on and starring in, and then we did our own series for Sony Television called Starving, which was a ridiculous comedy series. We only did 12 episodes, but it was an outrageous comedy, a kind of a taking the piss out of the two Corys, like these reality shows about actors and whatnot. And we did this really ridiculous series that was poking fun at ourselves and the TV industry and all of that. And we had Sam Cass, who was a writer producer from Seinfeld. He was on our team, buddy Todd Bringawat. But we had some incredible episodes on that. It's hard to find now. I have a few episodes published secretly on Vimeo because Sony Television ended up pulling it off of Crackle after the 12 episodes aired. I don't know if we grossly offended everybody or if our back end deal was a little too big for them to stomach, because we negotiated a ridiculous back end deal. We had Ed Asner in an episode. We had the cast of Family Ties in an episode. We had Gilbert Gottfried in an episode where David Faustino has to go and babysit Gilbert Gottfried's special needs son, and it was an outrageous episode. We had the full cast of Married with Children in an episode.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was wild. I mean, we had Coolio was a reoccurring character in it. Coolio had ended up remarrying David's ex-wife and lived across the street, and it was just an outrageous show. God bless Coolio. It's sad that he passed away.
Rest in peace. Yeah, I remember I watched Starving. It was a fun show because I always try to keep everybody that I like. I try to keep up with what they're doing. You know what I mean? No matter what. And Faustino's super cool too. I mean, you guys did Married with Children for him, of course, a heavyweight show, big time. You guys did High Hopes and Killer
High
Butt
Hopes,
together.
RoboDoc.
Yeah.
We did. Yeah, we were producers on both of those, and then we had a deal. We had a 3-picture deal with National Lampoon at the time, but unfortunately, that was when they got the SEC violations and got raided by the FBI and everything. Like we went in on a Monday, like I remember, because like we went in there on like a Monday and had this great meeting with all of them, all the execs over there, and it was fantastic. And we're just like just overjoyed, we're about to make
Yeah.
these films together. We already had one written and we were ready to go. And then 3 days later, we hear on the news the FBI just raided National Lampoon's in offices, and we're like, no.
Did they ever recover from that, or was that like a wrap for National
Yeah,
Lampoon's?
yes. I mean, they're not really they're not so much a production company really anymore as much as they just license the name.
Yeah. The Stand. How did you come into the Stand? I know that you did two outings with Mick Garris, I believe. You did the Whirlpool Tales from the Crypt episode, which I love Tales from the Crypt, and the Stand. For be a mini series of that length at that time was like
It
interesting.
was
That was
fantastic,
massive.
bro. It
Yeah.
was it was legendary. It was such an incredible work experience. I got that job really by chance. I had auditioned for Sleepwalkers that Mick Garris had directed a couple of years before that, and he loved my performance in it. But I didn't have the physical attributes that they were looking for the character. But apparently Mick was really torn because he really thought that I would have been able to play the role well. And when they were trying to cast the role of Harold Lauder, they were having problems. They were having problems finding an actor they believed could be the character that fit the description. And from my understanding, they had done casting calls in L.A. and San Francisco and Chicago and New York and even Miami, all for Harold Lauder as written in the book. And and during that time period, Mick had been telling um, Stephen that he had an actor he believed could play the role, but doesn't look like the character. And so finally, I got the opportunity to go in and audition for Stephen King and him, and it was just them two and the casting person in the room. So I went in, and when I got the script and I got the character description, I was like, bro, I'm not getting this. I'm like, I mean, why are they even auditioning me for this part? Like,
Yeah.
I get the character, I love the character, but I don't really understand how I got this audition.
Yeah.
And so I went in and I read for the role and everything, and when I finished the scenes, there was two scenes I had to perform, and when I finished the scenes, I remember Mick and Steven like having a little whisper fest, in the back of the room there, a little whispery. And I was like, dude, that could be really bad or really good. I don't know what this is. And then they were like, okay, thanks so much, and I left the room, and literally at the end of that day, I went in at like 11 a.m. and at like 4 p.m. they made an offer for me to play Harold Lauder. And I was like, what? And so, and it was all because of Mick Garris. Mick had been in Steven's ear, just saying, "Listen, Corin Nemec, this guy, he doesn't look like the character. But he's got the chops. He can play the role. I really want him. I really think you need to give him a chance." And so, and then when Steven saw my audition, he agreed with Mick that like, yo, he got the essence of who Harold Lauder is, and Harold does go through a change physically from the beginning to the end of the book as well, but not in the dynamic way that like my lean ass, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
is, but so they did do like a chub suit on me. They gave me like a little bit of weight and kind of like a pooch belly and a big bottom, wearing the apple bottom jeans for Harold Lauder when the show first starts, and then as it goes on, they lost that, and I was just myself by episode 3 or whatever. But what an incredible opportunity that was, and that's been really rad too. I didn't I had no idea really about the convention world and all of this until after I did Stargate. I didn't know anything about those, and so Stargate was my first introduction to like, oh, there's this whole world of fandom out there, with all of these shows and stuff.
Yeah.
And fortunately for me, having done even like, reoccurring on Ghost Whisperer as the ghost of her father, and then, being on Smallville, and then reoccurring character on Supernatural, and then the being in The Stand, and then obviously the iconic nature of Parker Lewis Can't Lose, and then, with Stargate and not necessarily a lot of the sci-fi movies I did after Stargate, but you'd be surprised how many people bring me copies of Sand Sharks and Dragon Wasps to sign on DVD at some of these conventions. It's pretty hilarious.
Yeah, they're fun films. I had a craft question for you real quick. Like, you played Richard Speck, you played Ted Bundy. When you're getting into a dark character like that, is there any like process or motivation you personally have? Do you listen to dark music? Do you do a lot of research into the character? What the real life, murderer or whatever? What was?
Yeah, I mean, without getting too in the weeds on it, because it's a really in-depth conversation. But
Yeah,
I mean, I watched the video footage that they had of the real Ted Bundy, and I got more from his quiet moments than I did from anything else. There was actually one particular moment when he was in court and the camera kind of zoomed in on him, and I think he forgot that he was in public, and this change happened on his face that went from, this performance that he was doing for everybody, like, I can't be this guy
yeah,
because I'm Ted Bundy. I'm this
yeah,
nice guy, like, and then but there was something that, man, it was so chilling. It was bone chilling. It was this demonic character that surfaced in that tiny little moment, and that's really where I got the majority of Ted Bundy from, was that one little moment. And the rest was the performance of Ted Bundy, this outward projection that he made of himself. But to be able to make that shift between, hey, I'm the nicest guy in the world. I'm the guy you want to sit at a bus stop with or have a coffee with at the local diner. And, I'm that guy,
yeah.
to, as soon as the door shuts, this change happening that's absolutely diabolical and terrifying. It's something else. And I will say that I've, of all the dark characters I've ever played, playing Ted Bundy was loathsome. I thought I was going to enjoy it. I thought it was going to be kind of fun. But by day 3, I was like, dude, this guy is disgusting. Like, I don't even want to have anything to do with this character,
Right.
you know. But that's because I think that the reason why I had that response is because I had tapped into who he truly was inside when the veil was pulled. But Richard Speck was, that guy. He was not only like a raging alcoholic and addicted to Reds, which was like, meth in a pill form, and was heavily abused as a child, and he wasn't really there. He was just a total lunatic. The guy was never really, ever even tried to pretend to be a normal person. He was who he was. And the night that mass murder happened, he was totally whacked out on Reds, even though they didn't touch on that in the story. He was like, had been on like a week-long bender, probably hadn't slept in days, you know what I mean, and was just totally out of his mind. And so it was a lot easier for me to make sense out of his behavior and why he was doing what he was doing, not only based on the abuse he suffered as a kid, but the alcohol abuse and the drug abuse. I could make sense out of this crazy guy, and I actually really enjoyed playing that role, in comparison to playing, Ted Bundy, because Ted Bundy was the opposite of that. He was very cold, calculating, methodical, and he had created this character of Ted Bundy to disguise his true self. And Richard Speck never did that. He was just Richard Speck.
Yeah. Well, this was a lot of fun. We usually ask one last question at the end. I'll make it super quick. We get a lot of artists, comedians, writers, authors, you name it, that watch the show. Do you have any advice for anybody out there that might find themselves in a dry spell or kind of stuck and, they're kind of questioning, what to do next, or pretty much just positive words to kind of keep going type deal, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, nowadays, obviously, we have we have more of a chance to do things ourselves or for ourselves than we ever have. For instance, when I was in a little bit of a dry spell because of the whole COVID shutdown and all that crap back then, myself and my good friend Jason London came up with a concept called Blackwater Blues, a TV series about it was kind of like Simon and Simon, but in the dirty South on swamp boats, and or the Dukes of Hazzard, but in the swamp, and we came up with this concept, and I wrote the TV pilot for it, and we raised the money and we shot it ourselves, and it's out on my YouTube on Corin Nemec TV. You can watch Blackwater Blues. It turned out really, really good. And we're still shopping it. It's not having a lit agent, as probably many of you know out there, is the doors are shut. It's very difficult to open doors without a high-powered lit agent or manager in the industry. So, and oddly enough, even as a successful actor over the years, it's just as difficult for me to convince lit agents and literary representatives that I'm worth representing, because they see me as an actor, this, that, and to get them to read scripts. It's as much as an uphill battle for me as it is for you guys out there. So the recommendation I have is like, find something that you can do on your own, do it for yourself. I did a show over in France called Noob, Noob. It's like a comedy show about what goes on inside of a video game with the avatars and all of that. And I did like 3 episodes of it, but it's a YouTube series that they put together themselves, a family of young artists and stuff. And now, they've made enough money off of the YouTube show because of all the views, the view count, that they were able to actually, finance it appropriately, and they're doing a video game for it, and they have, graphic novels for it, and they have a whole fan base, and they did it all themselves. So in this day and age, we're at a time period in that's so rare for the film and TV business that we can actually, with the right grit and the right passion and the right group of creatives around you, you can actually go out with the cameras that you have at your own disposal, even cell phone cameras, and shoot your own show and start your own fan base, and potentially make enough money to survive without having to be on a network.
Corin, this was a pleasure. We really appreciate your time. You know what I mean? To give
Yeah,
our
thanks
love.
both of you.
Hey, dude, and we'll do it some other time. We'll do it again. That'd be
Well,
very cool.
definitely. Let's catch up again after some of these other films come out that I mentioned.
We can't wait to see them films. Give our love to your mom. Have a great
I
day.
will.
Have a great day over there. We'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Thanks, brothers.
All right, be good.
Cheers, Alex.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was the great Corin Nemec. That was a great talk, man. He's a good dude creatively, and he's doing good things over there, playing the good fight, helping out his mom. That's really cool. That's honorable. I love it to death. You know what I mean? Very excited to have Corin on the show. Been a part of so many cool episodes. Parker Lewis can't lose for me. Like I said, that hit me at the right time. I was like the age of I was right getting ready to go into high school. There was nobody cooler in the world to me than Parker Lewis, dude. And again, he's better than I like him better than Ferris Bueller. I'm not the biggest Ferris Bueller fan. I like him better than Zach Morris. He was like for sure for shizzle, dude. Huge fan. And great dude, we're hoping to have him back in the future. There's a couple other projects we'd like to talk to him about it, but he gave us a little over an hour, I think, of his time. I think I made a bad calculation with the time. I think when he asked about the hour, I think we were at the hour. But that happens to the best of us, you know what I mean? A lot of fun, man. A lot of fun. I really enjoyed chatting with him. How about you, Alex?
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, it's what I love is talking to people like him who's been in the industry as long as he has done so many TV shows, movies, other projects, and he's constantly working. And also, I mean, it was also interesting finding out that he himself has problems trying to like get agents and other things. And you look at, all the stuff he's done, and you just, I mean, I would expect that, an agent be like, yeah, sure. I mean, it's not like he's a unknown commodity. I mean, heck, A homeless guy in Boston knew who the hell he was.
Guy don't even have a TV for crying out loud, and he knew who Parker Lewis was.
So yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun talking to him and hearing the stories and all the stuff that he's been a part of. I mean, there's honestly only two things I wanted to hit on that we didn't get to. Not big things. There was
Next time.
a short he did.
Yeah.
Okay, a short film called Privateer, which
Yeah.
was about Jean Lafayette, a pirate down in Louisiana, and he played Andrew Jackson. I wanted to ask him about, playing something like a historical figure like that. Then my personal favorite, a little guilty pleasure is Lake Placid versus Anaconda. Yes.
Anaconda, yeah.
Yeah. There's so many of I just enjoy the Anaconda and the Lake Placid series. So yeah, I definitely I wanted to ask him about that because he got to play work with not only Yancy Butler, who I'm a big fan of hers, but also Robert Englund. Okay, two class acts right there. But yeah, I mean the thing is he's constantly working. I mean, heck, he has his production company and he's keep on rolling out stuff. And I mean, the thing is, I consider him kind of like us, kind of like
Definitely
spiritual brothers in independent filmmaking because he's even though he's done so many stuff, it's still he knows the struggle. He's been there like us, trying to get projects off the ground,
yeah.
and people are like, oh no, I don't know about that, and we're like, hey, it's a good product. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah, dude. He also worked in the Ted Bundy flick. You worked with my boy Kane Hodder. I got to do the Haunting of Alice D with him. Super cool dude. And yeah, kudos. I always have extra love and respect for folks that the producing. It's like when you love this art form, this medium of entertainment, and like you get out, you get it, like the produce starting to produce. I know he's writing for a while, you know what I mean, but just getting into the producing aspect of it. Me and Alex talk about it a lot, where in order to do I think everybody, maybe not. I mean, it's a difficult thing where it's like I feel everybody kind of has the one thing that they want to do, but they have to wear many hats to be able to do that one thing, or at least it starts that way. Like if I could only do, if there was one thing I could do, it'd be directing. But I find myself doing everything else, to make sure I can direct. Alex over here, I think if there was one thing he could do, it would be acting, and he finds himself producing sometimes and directing to do that one role, and
Wardrobe,
it's
props, you name it.
it's just a sign of what you are willing to do to be able to do what you want to do. You know what I mean? And filmmakers, in this business, whether we're talking $100 million movies or whatever, it's like you got to do what you got to do what you want to do. You know what I mean? Um, and there's more control that comes when you produce. There's more the control. Like I don't act, but my brother from another mother over here, Alex, acts, and not recently, but there's some of his earlier works where like I know there's some stuff that he's not exactly happy with. There's things that never came out. So like that, what I'm going for is like you got to step into the producing shoes to protect yourself in what you're doing and keep control of kind of your performance and what you're doing in the film. Otherwise, if you just leave it up to some strangers, it could get destroyed. It could turn into something you see and don't even wish you weren't a part of it. You know what I mean? So like, I always appreciate when folks. It's a sign. I don't know. I don't want to say other people don't care, but it's a sign of really caring when you get involved with the other elements of the craft to help support, the main thing that you want to do. You know what I mean? And it's like it's a tricky slope sometimes, you know what I mean? But yeah, dude, Corin was the man. Corin's super cool dude, talented as hell. Definitely, if Boombastic Films had a deal and we had unlimited sources, I would definitely produce Parker Lewis Can't Win. I think that would be fantastic. I would watch it. I know other people would watch it. I know from my age group, a lot of the people I talk to love Parker Lewis. Like Parker Lewis, like I said, dude, he was better than fucking Ferris Bueller. He's better than Zach Morris. Zach Morris and Ferris Bueller are like arrogant, like people that you would want to headbutt in real life. But
Yeah.
Parker Lewis was the every man, every teenager type dude that everybody liked. He was cool as hell. You know what I mean? Um, Even like an animated series, like a Parker Lewis, animated series would be kind of cool. Um, but yeah, Corin was super cool. We appreciate his time. We send our love over to his mom. And yeah, is there anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Nothing much. Just that it
Is
was great having him on the show. I can't wait till we get him back on. And again, it's great talking with someone that it's down to earth. That's he understands the struggle. He's been doing the business since he was a teenager,
Yeah,
and 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 just the hustle. I mean, it's I mean that's what keeps people going, and that's why the only way that any of us become successful is we don't give up and we keep on hustling. Now,
yeah,
I'm not saying the question is you have to decide what do you consider winning. Okay, I
yeah,
mean I've gone to a convention and I've run into people that they were on a hit show, and but that's all they're really known for. And
yeah,
when you kind of talk to them, they seem kind of depressed. They're kind of upset. They're like, well, I did this film, a TV show, but no one will cast me in anything else, and all of that. But I'm like, you don't understand. You have won, okay?
yeah,
Being on something that people still talk about. I mean, you go to conventions, people still care. That, in my opinion, is winning. Okay, even
yeah,
if it's only one thing. If you can end up being on a bunch of things that people care about, yeah, that is great. But if you get to be in at least one project that people, years later are still talking about, that still come up to you. I mean, heck, you have someone come up to you and says, "Hey, Puckaloo's Can't Lose, love that show." That itself, as far as I'm concerned, is 100% a win because there's so many people who struggle that don't even get that chance. Those who they go out, they try their luck, and they just don't go anywhere, and then they go home and they get regular jobs, which are good and good things to do, but their hopes and their passions of being an actor doesn't happen. So as far as I'm concerned, if you are able to play one role or one TV show that people connect with, you've already won. At least in my humble opinion.
oh yeah,
So
you left a lasting impression. I think for me, like what the thing that I liked a lot about the craft of entertaining folks via film was like I've always loved film, and whenever I've gone through like a hard time in my life, I feel like film's always been there for me. Maybe not the create making the film, maybe that was part of the hard time in my life, but just like watching films that you love, like they'll take you out of whatever madness you're going through in life for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and that's what the power of that is one of my favorite parts of film, and why I continue to make them is, hearing from people, where I'm not Spielberg or Tarantino, but I hear from time to time people that really appreciate the films. And, I hate to say it's corny, but I've had one person, actually two people. I've had two people tell me that my films have saved their lives, which is kind of crazy. And I think they're just trying to, blow me up a little bit, but I'll take it. But that's kind of, to know that our films can do that for people, take them out of like even the mental state of a bad time for an hour and a half, 2 hours, like that's the beauty in it. That's the real favor to humanity that you do with these art forms, you know what I mean? Those are the lasting impressions that you leave on people. And like Alex was saying, it's like some people work their entire life to try and get to something or make something that it touches people and sticks with people, and they might never be able to do that. And no matter if you've done that, if you had that relationship with the audience, whether it was 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 minutes ago, just to have that connection to people and humanity and do the greater good for humankind, that's always to be applauded, you know what I mean? And respected and appreciated, and doing a big style. So ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed this episode. I know that we did. And Corin was a great dude. Go support him. I'm looking forward to seeing those films, and I will see those films because like I said, once I like somebody, I don't care if they're not the who's who anymore or they're not the biggest thing anymore. I keep up, dude. I watched that Starving show with Faustino and him back in the day for Rizzle, like for real. Not even he's not even here. No bullshit. You know what I mean? Because I appreciate the bond that you have with people that you might never have met, but they've entertained you and they've done positive stuff with your life type deal, like that. And these people, the entertainers and performers in these television shows, these movies, the music, all this stuff that rounds out people's lives, that gives them a little something, you gotta, you gotta, I always have appreciation. You know what I mean? So, with that being said, we hope everybody enjoyed this episode, and we'll catch y'all on the next episode of the BoomBastiCAST.
Peace.